Sorry, we're looking for someone a little more qualified, he said, not even looking up from his desk. I stood there holding my resume. Crisp, clean, hopeful, like a child bringing home a drawing to an uninterested parent. My voice caught in my throat. I had rehearsed everything. I knew I could do this job. But none of it mattered. Maybe try back after you get a degree or something, he added with a casual smirk. The silence that followed wasn't just between us. It was inside me, thick, bitter. I nodded slowly, folded my resume back into my bag, and turned to leave. Outside, I could still hear laughter from the break room. Their world was warm, secure, untouchable. Mine felt like a glass wall I couldn't break through. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just walked back to the bus stop, sat down, and stared at the blank screen of my phone. It wasn't the first rejection, but something about this one shifted something inside me. Something deep. Something permanent. I was 10 years old the first time I realized my family didn't believe in me. It was at a birthday party for my older brother, Marcus. The living room was filled with balloons, relatives laughing over greasy pizza, and the smell of candles and cake. He was turning 16, and my mom had rented him a limo for the night. A limo. Just for driving around the block with his friends. I stood near the corner of the room, holding the homemade card I'd drawn for him. It had taken me 3 hours and a lot of careful erasing. He barely looked at it before tossing it onto the table. No thank you. No smile. Nothing. Mom rushed over with a fresh plate of wings for him. You always were the star, she said, beaming. That night, I washed the dishes while everyone else watched Marcus open a brand new phone, a chain, and $300 in cash. For my birthday a month later, I got a clearance bin purse from the dollar store. No one forgot Marcus's birthdays.
But mine?
Mom once said, "Oh, is it the 19th already?" while rushing out the door for her third shift. I wasn't angry, just quiet, because quiet was how I survived in that house. Our apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, 1 shared bathroom, and thin walls that let you hear every sigh, every fight, every tired breath. My mom worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3. I loved her. I never doubted she loved us. But love doesn't always come out fair, especially when one child is seen as the future and the other is just the helper. I was the helper. I learned to cook by 10. I could budget groceries by 12. When Marcus got into trouble fighting, skipping school, I was the one Mom leaned on. Just help him study, Aaliyah. You're good at that stuff. Marcus had charm. He had swagger. He could talk his way out of anything. And he always had excuses. I had results. But somehow, excuses got praised more than consistency in that house. School was my escape. I loved books, the smell of old pages, the feel of paper under my fingers, the way you could disappear into a story and not be you for a while. I wasn't Aaliyah from apartment 6B when I was reading. I was a detective, a queen, an astronaut, a judge. But school wasn't just refuge, it was resistance. I made honor roll every semester. I stayed late for tutoring and arrived early for labs. My teachers noticed. Ms. Edwards, my 11th grade English teacher, once pulled me aside. You know you could go Ivy League, right? I laughed out loud. We didn't have money for rent half the time. College? Ivy League? But a seed was planted. Senior year came fast. Marcus dropped out, got into some mess with stolen car parts, and was arrested, though charges were dropped. Mom cried all night. I held her hand. I skipped school the next morning just to make sure she didn't collapse. Nobody thanked me. Nobody noticed. I filled out my FAFSA at the public library because our internet was down. I applied to every scholarship I could find. I wrote essays between babysitting shifts and late-night dishwashing at a diner. I didn't tell anyone when I got accepted into 4 state colleges, including full-ride scholarships at 2. Not even my mom. Because I knew what would happen. And I was right. When I finally told her, sitting at our wobbly kitchen table, she didn't smile. She didn't clap or cry. She just stared at the envelope, then at me. Who's going to take care of things if you leave? She asked. Not, congratulations. Not, I'm proud of you. Just, what about me? She didn't mean it in a cruel way. It was survival. She had relied on me so long that my leaving felt like betrayal. So I stayed. I deferred. I worked. I worked at a grocery store during the day and cleaned offices at night. I started an online associate's degree, one class at a time. Slowly. Quietly. Marcus moved back in after getting a girl pregnant. He didn't work. Just smoked and played games. Mom still doted on him like he was her prince. I remember one night when the baby, Marcus's daughter, wouldn't stop crying. I rocked her in my arms while he slept, and Mom snored in the other room. I whispered to her, "I'm gonna get us all out of this one day." She just blinked up at me like she believed me. That was enough. It took 6 years to finish my bachelor's. 6 years of late nights, of budgeting every penny, of working jobs that made me feel invisible. There was this one job, janitorial night shift at a corporate building downtown. I'd mop around polished shoes and expensive briefcases. I learned not to make eye contact, to smile but stay quiet. But I listened. I absorbed everything. How they spoke, how meetings were run, how hiring worked. I cleaned a floor that belonged to a fancy marketing firm. The HR guy once left a folder on his desk labeled entry-level intern screening. I shouldn't have read it, but I did. I saw what mattered, and what didn't. I saw degrees that matched mine, some even lower. It wasn't about what you knew. It was about who believed in you and who opened the door. So I decided to stop knocking and build my own. By the time I turned 30, I had a bachelor's in business administration, a side hustle running social media pages for small Black-owned brands, a savings account with $18,432, and a fire in me that could not be put out. I took out a small business loan, registered my LLC, and launched Bold Social Media Company, a digital branding firm focused on elevating underdog businesses. No office. Just my laptop, a cracked phone, and Wi-Fi from the corner cafe. I worked day and night. My first client was a hair salon owned by a single mom who cried when I helped her triple her online bookings. Word spread. 1 year later, I had a team of 5. All women. All overlooked before I hired them. And that's when the real twist came. I opened a job listing for an executive assistant. Guess who applied? The same man who told me years ago to come back with a degree. His name, Evan Carter. When I saw Evan Carter's name in my applicant pool, I stared at the screen for a long time. It was him. Same name. Same smirk in the photo, just a little older now, a little more tired. His resume was impressive on paper. Assistant director of client services at a mid-tier agency, a few contract gigs, and even some community management certifications. But I didn't need the resume to know who he was. I remembered every detail of that day. His navy suit, the lanyard around his neck, the way he didn't even look at me when he dismissed my entire existence. "We're looking for someone more qualified." He had said it like he was talking about a shoe that didn't fit. Now he was asking for a chance. At my company. I didn't delete his application. I didn't reject it either. I did what I always did. I kept receipts. And I kept moving. But life has a funny way of circling back, and this time, it brought more than just Evan. That same week, my mom called after almost 8 months of silence. "Aaliyah, it's Marcus. He's not doing well." I sat on my office couch, the leather soft under me, sunlight pouring through the windows. My company was growing. I had an assistant now, a corner suite, clients in 3 cities. I wore suits tailored to my frame, not discounted from donation bins. But my mom's voice still had the power to pull me into that tiny kitchen with broken drawers and unpaid bills. "He lost his job. The baby's mom moved away with their daughter. He's in a bad place." I didn't respond immediately. She kept going. "He could use your help. Maybe a job? Just something to get back on his feet." The irony. All those years they told me I wasn't doing enough, that I wasn't the one with potential. And now, I was the safety net. I told her I'd think about it. I didn't promise. But something inside me cracked again. Later that week, I decided to interview Evan. I wanted to see him, hear him, not out of revenge, I wasn't looking for drama. I just needed closure. He walked into the office like he owned the place, confident, calm, the same air of entitlement I remembered. Aaliyah Brooks, he said, extending a hand. I stood slowly.
Yes.
CEO of Bold Social. I watched it register, slowly at first, then all at once. He blinked. His grip faltered just a little. You look familiar, he said, trying to place me. I didn't help him. I just motioned for him to sit. Let's talk about your experience, I said, clicking open his file. For 30 minutes, I asked questions, the same questions he once used to corner people like me into rejection. And he fumbled. Not because he was underqualified, but because he wasn't used to being the one at the mercy of someone else's decision. And definitely not mine. At the end of the interview, he leaned forward. You've built something amazing here, he said. I'd love to be part of it. I nodded once. Thanks, Evan. We'll be in touch. He smiled, stood, offered his hand again. This time I didn't take it. I just looked him in the eye and said, You once told me to come back when I had a degree. He froze. I don't remember that. Funny, I said. I do. He opened his mouth, maybe to defend himself, maybe to lie. But I was done. This interview is over. He left quietly. I stood at the window after he was gone, watching him cross the parking lot. Not with pride, not with vengeance, just peace. Because for the first time, I didn't need an apology. I had power. The next few days were quiet. My mom texted a few more times, each message heavier than the last. Marcus is spiraling.
He needs you, Aaliyah.
You're his sister. There was guilt in those words, but not enough accountability. I responded once. I've helped him my whole life. Now he has to help himself. She didn't reply after that, but I knew how that silence felt, and I stayed in it anyway. A week later, I got a call from the front desk. Hey boss, Mr. Carter just dropped off something for you. I walked down and found a manila envelope with my name on it, no return address. Inside,
A resume.
his resume, with a note written on the back in blue pen. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I didn't see you then, but I see you now. I held it for a long time. Then I folded it and dropped it in the shredder. One night that week, I walked into my favorite cafe, the same one where I used to borrow Wi-Fi for school. The barista, a college student named Danny, smiled and asked if I wanted the usual. As I waited, I noticed a young girl sitting alone in the corner, laptop open, textbooks spread everywhere. She had that look, tired, focused, barely holding it together. I recognized her because I was her. I walked over and gently placed a bold business card on her table. If you ever need an internship, I said, email me. She blinked, stunned, then nodded. Thank you. I smiled and walked away. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's making sure no one else has to go through what you did. I didn't tell anyone in my family when I opened my second office. No Facebook posts. No group texts. No ribbon-cutting announcement. Just keys in my hand, contract signed, and the quiet thump of a new leather chair sliding into place. It was in Atlanta, a sleek, minimalist co-working space turned full suite rental. I decorated it myself. Rich earth tones, soft lighting, and artwork from local Black women creatives. It was the kind of space that whispered, "You belong here," even if no one else ever had. I had learned by then that real power doesn't announce itself. It moves quietly, just like I had started to. My withdrawal began long before anyone noticed. It started with one unreturned call from my mother, then another. I used to call her every Sunday, even when I knew the conversation would eventually circle back to Marcus, to guilt, to her asking for something. But one Sunday, I just didn't call, and it felt like oxygen. I canceled the monthly money transfer I had been sending her since I was 21. $200 every first of the month, even when I could barely afford gas. I thought I was being dutiful. She thought it was expected.
But now?
Now I needed to reclaim the parts of me I gave away so freely. I removed myself from the family group chat. I stopped liking their posts, stopped replying to, "Can you just help with one thing?" emails from cousins who never even knew my birthday. I stopped explaining my no. I just said it. Once, my aunt left a voicemail. "We noticed you've gone quiet. It's not like you." She was right. It wasn't like the old me. The old me was always available, always apologizing, always shrinking myself so others wouldn't feel threatened by how big I could be. But I wasn't that girl anymore. At work, things were blooming. I promoted my first intern, a brilliant young woman named Nia, to full-time project lead. She reminded me so much of myself at 19, only now she had the backing I never did. I watched her lead her first client meeting, shoulders back, voice steady. I teared up afterward in the stairwell. Quietly, proudly, because this is what it was all for. Not revenge, not proving anything, but creating a world where the next Aaliyah didn't have to beg to be seen. Sometimes I'd think about Evan Carter. Not often, just in flashes. What it must have felt like, sitting across from the girl he once rejected, now his potential boss. But I never responded to his email follow-up. I didn't need to. Silence had become my greatest weapon. Not because it hurt anyone, but because it freed me. My peace grew in small, unexpected places. In saying no to a client who disrespected my assistant. In closing my laptop at 6 p.m. and not feeling guilty. In learning how to say, "I'll think about it," and actually giving myself space to decide. One day, I was sitting in my home office, a sun-drenched loft with floor-to-ceiling windows, when I opened a drawer and saw a photo of me at 18. Hair pulled back tight, oversized hoodie, bags under my eyes from 3 part-time jobs and night classes. I stared at her for a long time. "You made it," I whispered. And I meant it. Not because of the money. Not because of the title. But because I had finally learned how to live without chasing someone else's approval. Then one morning I got an email that stopped me cold. Subject: Interview request, Black Women in Power Series. It was from a major online publication, the kind that highlighted industry leaders, game changers, women who built empires from nothing. They wanted to feature me. Me. Aaliyah Brooks, founder of Bold Social. There was a time I would have screamed. Posted it everywhere. Told everyone who ever doubted me.
But now?
I smiled, took a deep breath, and clicked reply. I'd be honored. Let me know the next steps. After the interview went live, things exploded. Clients poured in. Speaking offers followed. And with them came something I didn't expect. Visibility. Not the shiny kind, not fame, but recognition. From people who mattered. People I didn't even know were watching. A message came in from a woman named Serena Whitman, a director at a creative agency I'd admired for years. "I've followed your work for months. You're changing the game. Let's connect." We met over coffee. She was warm, intentional, and sharp. She didn't ask about where I went to school. She asked what kind of legacy I wanted to build. I told her the truth. One where kindness is part of the business model. She nodded and just said, "Then you're already doing it." At night, I'd walk my dog through the neighborhood and think about how different my world had become. Not just externally, not just the car, the condo, or the clients, but internally. I used to feel so invisible. Now, I felt grounded. And ironically, the more visible I became to the outside world, the more selective I got about who had access to my inner world. That was the power shift. Not the success, but the boundaries. One day, I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer, but they left a voicemail. It was Marcus. His voice was lower, more hesitant than I remembered. "Hey, I know we haven't talked, and I know I wasn't always great to you, but I saw your interview, and I just wanted to say, I'm proud of you. That's all." I didn't cry. I didn't call back. But I didn't delete the message, either. Because healing doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means you can hear their voice and not fall apart. I was sitting in my office a week later, when I received a LinkedIn request. Evan Carter again. No message this time. Just request. I stared at it, hovered over ignore, then clicked it. Not accept, not block, just ignore. And the best part? I didn't feel anything. Not bitterness, not triumph, just freedom. It was a Wednesday afternoon when the email arrived. I almost missed it, buried between client contracts and event invites. Subject: a thank you that's long overdue. The sender's name: Lena Diaz. I clicked it, curious. Dear Ms. Brooks, you don't know me, but I've known about you for a while. And I've been meaning to write this email. I just didn't know if it would matter. About 2 years ago, my mother's small bookstore in Savannah was dying. She was days from closing when someone offered to help with her online marketing, pro bono. She told me it was a woman named Aaliyah Brooks. I didn't think much of it at the time, but that help, it saved her store. And it saved her. She's still in business today. She's thriving. And she's proud. And every time I visit, she tells me about this amazing woman who saw her worth when no one else did. Today, I came across your interview, and I realized you're the same Aaliyah Brooks who helped her. I just wanted to say thank you, and to tell you that people notice, even if they don't always say it right away. Your kindness changed lives. With deep gratitude, Lena Diaz. I read the email twice, then a third time. My chest felt tight in that good, overwhelming way, like when you're about to cry, but don't want in public. I remembered that project. The tiny bookstore with crooked shelves and a sweet owner who baked cookies for every customer. I'd helped build her website, set up online ordering, and create social media posts. I never charged her. I didn't think twice. I did it because I could. And here it was years later, circling back to me. That night, I sat on my balcony, city lights glittering below, and thought about all the times I doubted my path. The nights I worked while others partied. The days I stayed quiet so I wouldn't be seen as too ambitious or too much. The moments I almost gave up because it felt like no one cared. But someone had cared. Someone had noticed. And that changed everything. 2 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. Normally, I let those go. But something made me pick up. Is this Aaliyah Brooks? The voice was warm, confident. Yes, speaking. Hi, I'm Serena Whitman. I'm creative director at Lumen Agency. I hope this isn't a bad time. My heart skipped. Lumen was huge. I'd admired their work for years. Cutting-edge campaigns, inclusive hiring practices, purpose-driven branding. Not at all. What can I do for you? Actually, she said, what can we do for you? We've been watching Bold Social's growth. I read your recent profile. And, well, I'd like to talk about a partnership. I think you're exactly the kind of leader we want to collaborate with. My breath caught. Serena Whitman knew who I was. Not because of a degree. Not because of connections. Because of my work. Because of who I was when no one was watching. We set a meeting. It went better than I could have imagined. Serena wasn't just impressed by my company's numbers. She was impressed by the way I led, the way I treated people, the way I prioritized purpose over profit, but somehow achieved both. At one point, she leaned forward on the cafe table and said, I have to ask, how did you learn to lead like this? I smiled, stirring my tea, by watching all the people who didn't, and deciding I'd be different. She laughed, not the polite kind, the real, from the gut kind. I respect that, she said. A lot. A few days after that, another surprise. My aunt, the one who'd once told me I was too sensitive when I'd cried about being left out of family events, shared my interview on Facebook. With the caption, proud of my niece. Always knew she was destined for greatness. I stared at it. The irony. No comment. No like. Just noted. Because I didn't need validation anymore. But it was interesting to see who offered it when the world started watching. Then came the LinkedIn messages. I saw your piece. Incredible journey. I remember you from that conference. You inspired me then, too. We met once at a workshop. You probably don't remember, but you encouraged me to keep going. I did. Thank you. I didn't remember all of them, but they remembered me, and that was humbling. The most unexpected moment came during a client pitch. A man on the selection panel kept glancing at me. I thought maybe I had a coffee stain or something in my teeth. After the meeting, he approached me quietly. "You don't remember me, do you?" I shook my head, apologetic. "You were the night cleaner at my old office building. You used to leave little post-its with positive quotes on the vending machine. Those meant a lot to me. I was going through a divorce then. Those notes helped more than you'll ever know." I froze. He smiled. "You've been inspiring people longer than you realize." And in that moment, I felt seen in a way no degree, no job title, no LinkedIn endorsement ever could provide. That night, I wrote back to Lena Diaz. "Dear Lena, your message meant more than I can say. Please tell your mom I'm so glad she's thriving. And thank you for reminding me that small acts matter, that kindness lasts. With gratitude, Aaliyah." Then I closed my laptop, looked out at the city again, and whispered to myself, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. It started with a harmless Facebook message. "Mom, hey sweetie, can we talk? It's been a while." I didn't answer right away. I stared at it for a long time, reading between the lines. The warmth, the sudden sweetness, the pretending like nothing had ever happened. It wasn't a real olive branch. It was a fishing line. And I wasn't biting. 2 days later, Marcus called. The name flashed on my screen while I sat in the back seat of a car service heading to a client event in Charlotte. I didn't pick up. But again, he left a voicemail. "Yo, sis, saw your interview. You really made it, huh? That's dope. Listen, Ma's been stressed. Things got hard. I was thinking maybe we could all get together sometime soon. Like, just reset, you know? Let the past be the past." There it was. The buzzword. Reset. Not apology. Not acknowledgement. Just reset. A few hours later, I got an email from my cousin Tasha. She had never once messaged me privately. Not even when my dad passed and she posted RIP UNC like we were a family that showed up for each other. "Hey Aaliyah. So proud of what you're doing. We're putting together a little family celebration and would love to have you there. No pressure. Just good vibes." No pressure? I could practically feel the tension in her punctuation.
Why now?
Why the sudden love? Because the world had started watching. Because people were quoting my interview. Because I was no longer invisible. And the truth? Visibility makes people uncomfortable, especially the ones who needed you to stay small so they could feel big. A week later, my mom called. This time I picked up. Not because I owed her, because I was ready. Her voice was nervous, light, like she was tiptoeing over broken glass. "Hey baby, I just wanted to hear your voice." I stayed quiet. "I saw your article. Your face was everywhere. I mean, wow, that's big." "Yeah," I said. "It was. You know, people are talking. Even at church. Pastor Ray said he'd like to invite you to speak." I almost laughed.
Speak?
At the same church that once told me to humble myself when I asked for help? "And your cousin Reggie, you remember him? He said maybe you could help his daughter get an internship. She's interested in media, too." There it was. The real reason. The need behind the praise. Not "we're proud of you." Not "I'm sorry for what I didn't see back then." Just, "what can you do for us now that you matter?" "I'm happy for you," she continued. "Maybe we could have a little dinner soon? Just talk." I looked out the window. "I'm not sure that would be healthy for me right now," I said gently. There was a pause on her end. The kind of pause that happens when someone hears a version of you they never met before. "You're really different now," she said.
No, Mom.
"I'm finally myself." She sighed. Long and low. "Okay, I get it." And then, quietly, "I hope someday we can fix things." I didn't say me too. I didn't say maybe. I just let the silence speak for me. Days passed. Then came the group chat invite. Group name, Family Matters Orange Heart Speech Balloon. I declined it. Then came a tag on Facebook from Marcus, a blurry photo of me from years ago, followed by, "My sister out here doing her thing." We always knew she was destined to win.
I stared at it.
This man who mocked me, took from me, let me raise his daughter when he was too tired or too high, now claiming me for social capital. I didn't comment, didn't like, just reported the post and moved on. Then Tasha sent another message. Hey girl, not sure if you saw, but we're organizing a community panel and thought you'd be perfect. It'd be amazing exposure for you. Exposure. Funny word. I didn't need exposure. I needed boundaries. So I wrote back. I appreciate you thinking of me, but I'm at capacity right now. Wishing you the best with the event. She didn't reply. Just left me on scene. Even Pastor Ray emailed. God is doing something big in your life, Sister Aaliyah. Would love to have you bless the congregation with a testimony. Maybe even donate to the youth program. The same man who once pulled me aside and told me, leadership is a man's calling. Maybe support your brother instead of competing. I archived the message without responding. Let God handle it. Damage control isn't always loud. Sometimes it comes wrapped in praise, in invitations, in let's reset language. But the goal is the same. Control the narrative. Keep you useful. Keep you small. But I was done being their secret resource. Their fallback. Their quiet miracle worker. Now they wanted to rebrand me as the family success story, without ever asking what they'd done to kill that dream in the first place. They wanted to skip the chapter where I cried alone in public bathrooms. Where I ate ramen so they could borrow money and never return it. Where I wasn't invited to weddings, but was expected to show up with gifts. One night, I got a call from Grandma Ruby. She was one of the few who'd never made me feel invisible. Baby girl, you glowing, she said with a laugh. I saw your face in that magazine, like you was Beyoncé. I laughed too. Really laughed. You've always had light in you, she said. Don't let 'em dim it now that they see it shining. I won't. And don't forget, being proud doesn't mean being cruel. But it do mean knowing who you are. I held those words like gospel. Because the truth was, I wasn't angry anymore. I just wasn't available. And that's what they couldn't handle. A week later, Mom called again. Your uncle's 60th is coming up. We're doing a dinner. Everyone's asking about you. I won't be attending. Why not? Because I'm not ready to perform forgiveness I haven't felt. Silence. So that's it, she asked. You're just cutting us off?
No.
I'm choosing me. That's different. She sighed. I miss you. I miss who I wanted you to be.
Click.
I didn't cry. I didn't doubt. I just opened my journal that night and wrote. They only miss you when the light you built starts to shine without them. And for the first time, I believed it. All the way down. It was a warm Friday afternoon when the letter arrived. Yes, an actual letter. Not an email. Not a DM. Not a shout-out online. An envelope. Handwritten. Stamped. The ink slightly smudged from travel. It came from Savannah. I didn't recognize the name at first, Mrs. Ruth Diaz. But the return address clicked. The bookstore. The one I'd helped years ago. The one I almost forgot about. I opened it slowly, careful not to rip the delicate paper. Her handwriting was neat, but a little shaky. Every stroke felt like it carried intention. Dear Miss Aaliyah, I hope this letter finds you well. I never expected to write something like this, but my daughter Lena showed me your interview and said, Mom, that's your angel. I watched it 3 times. I cried every time. I didn't know your full story until now. I knew you were kind. I knew you were brilliant. But I didn't know how much you carried. How much you gave, even when no one gave back. I remember the day you first walked into my store. You were soft-spoken but confident. You saw me struggling and said, I can help. I don't want anything in return. At the time, I thought, who does that anymore? But you did. You showed up week after week. You helped me reach customers I never would have known. Because of you, my little shop survived a storm I didn't think I could weather. You didn't just save my business. You gave me back my purpose. You gave me back myself. And now the whole world is finally seeing what I saw then. Thank you, Aaliyah. Not just for what you did, but for who you are.
Love.
Mrs. Ruth Diaz. I sat in my office, the letter resting in my lap, tears quietly tracing down my cheeks. No cameras. No applause. Just this sacred moment, this reminder that the things we do when no one's watching, they matter most. I folded the letter carefully, slid it into my journal, and whispered, "Thank you," to the empty room. That same weekend, I flew to New York for a Women in Leadership conference. The room was electric, filled with women who'd climbed mountains and kicked down doors. I was the keynote.
Me.
The girl who used to clean buildings at midnight. The girl who was once told she'd never make it without a degree. The girl who was once laughed out of an interview by someone who later applied to work for her. I stood behind the curtain, heels clicking nervously on the floor, when someone tapped me on the shoulder. It was Nia, my first intern, now a full-fledged team lead. "You ready?" she asked, smiling. I took a breath. "I think I am." She nodded. "You've already won. This is just the encore." I stepped on stage. 1,000 eyes.
Spotlights.
And silence. I told my story. Not the polished version. The real one. The ignored daughter. The overlooked candidate. The rejected applicant who built her own ladder when they wouldn't let her in the elevator. And then I paused. And I said,
They told me I needed a degree.
so I got one not from a university, but from every failure, every late night, every no that taught me how to say yes to myself. And then I hired the very people who once shut the door on me, not to prove a point, but to prove that I didn't need theirs. The room stood. Applause thundered, not for perfection, but for truth. And in the front row, I saw a young black girl, maybe 17, with thick braids and a notebook in her lap. She was crying. Our eyes met, and I smiled at her the way I wish someone had smiled at me at that age. Afterward, in the lobby, she approached me. "Miss Brooks," she asked shyly, "I just wanted to say thank you for everything you set up there. I didn't think someone like me could ever, get here." "You already are here," I said gently. "You just have to believe you deserve to stay." She nodded, blinking back tears. "I want to intern for you someday." I handed her my card. "You just got your first yes." The emotional circles started to complete themselves. A former teacher emailed me. "You were quiet in class, but we see now you were just listening and learning how to roar." An old classmate, Med, "I teased you once. I've never forgotten it. Watching you now, I just want to say I'm sorry." Even the barista from the cafe I used to haunt, Danny, wrote me a message. "I'm in grad school now.
Marketing.
Because of the way you believed in me." But the most powerful moment came in the mail again. Another letter. This one from Evan Carter. I didn't expect it.
Didn't want it really.
But I read it anyway. "Aaliyah, I know I'm the last person who deserves your time. And I know I've made mistakes I can't undo. But I saw your interview. I watched it twice. I recognized the woman you are. And then I remembered the girl I dismissed.
I'm sorry. Truly.
I didn't see you. Not because you weren't enough, but because I wasn't ready to recognize someone who challenged my view of success.
You didn't need a degree.
You needed a chance. And I was too blind to offer it. Thank you for showing the world and people like me what true leadership looks like. No ask. No expectation. Just gratitude. Evan." I sat with the letter, then placed it in a drawer. Not to cherish it. Not to forgive it. Just to remind myself that sometimes even the people who wrong you eventually recognize the weight of what they missed. And sometimes that's enough. One evening, I hosted a mentorship dinner at my office, all women from underserved backgrounds. I shared my story, answered questions, hugged strangers who now felt like little versions of myself. At the end of the night, one girl stood and asked, "If you could go back and say anything to the version of you sitting outside that interview all those years ago, what would it be?" I smiled, heartful. I'd tell her this: "You are not behind. You are not too much. You are exactly the right amount of fire, grace, and power. They just don't know how to measure you yet. But they will. The knock came on a Sunday morning.
Soft.
Hesitant. The kind of knock you use when you're not sure if you should be knocking at all. I was sipping tea in my sunlit kitchen, barefoot, wrapped in a robe that felt like luxury and liberation. I opened the door. It was Marcus. He looked smaller than I remembered. Shoulders hunched, eyes darting like he was expecting me to slam the door. "Hey," he said quietly. "Can we talk?" I didn't move. Just stood there, hand on the doorframe, waiting. I know I messed up. We all did. I stayed silent. "We're just trying to fix things, you know? We don't want beef. Ma's not doing great. She talks about you a lot. She wants to see you." I breathed in deeply. "What's she want, Marcus?" He hesitated, then said what he should have led with. "She needs help. Financial help." There it was. The ask. The inevitable request dressed up in guilt and thin memories of childhood. "We thought maybe now that you're doing well." I held up a hand. Not in anger. Not in annoyance. In finality. "Marcus," I said, voice calm. "I wish you all peace. But I'm not your solution anymore." He looked down. Swallowed. "So that's it?"
No.
"That's me." "You really not gonna help your own family?" I didn't flinch. I did. For years. And it nearly cost me myself. His face hardened slightly, pride trying to rebuild where vulnerability had just stood. "We're still blood." I nodded. "And that's all we ever were." Then gently I closed the door. Not fast. Not dramatically. Just closed. And on the other side I heard him pause. Then footsteps. Then silence. Later that day, my mother emailed. "He told me you said no. I hope one day you understand how hard things were for me, too. I was doing my best. I'm sorry if it wasn't enough." That was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever received. And yet, it was still filled with her. Not me. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because peace doesn't beg to be understood. It just is. The next week, I visited Savannah again, not for family, but for a speaking engagement. I made time to stop by Mrs. Diaz's bookstore. She hugged me so tight, I could barely breathe. "You look free," she whispered. I smiled. "I am." She gave me a mug from the store, hand-painted, deep blue ceramic, with gold lettering that read, "You owe no one the version of you that suffered to survive them." I held it like scripture. Back home, I started a new ritual, lighting a candle every Sunday night for the girl I used to be. The girl who gave too much, apologized too fast, stayed too long. And then I'd blow it out for the woman I had become. The one who said no, not with anger, but with grace. One day, I passed by a university I used to dream about attending. It was hosting a job fair. I peeked inside. Rows of eager students. Resumes. Suits a size too big. Eyes a little too nervous. And there, on a panel at the front of the auditorium, sat Evan Carter. Older. Grayer. Still polished. Still performing. I stood at the back. Listened. He spoke of hiring strategies. Of recognizing overlooked talent. And for a moment, our eyes met. He blinked. I nodded once. Not with resentment. With recognition. He nodded back. And I walked away. Because closure isn't confrontation. It's choosing peace over the performance of pain. Back at the office, I saw Nia prepping the new intern, a bright-eyed young woman named Janelle with a notebook full of questions. I stood in the doorway, watching quietly. Nia turned and smiled. "We got this." "I know you do." I walked into my office, closed the door, and sat at my desk, the one with the view I used to dream about. I glanced at the framed quote on the wall. "You don't need a seat at their table. Build your own, and then let them apply." That table? It was full now. Of women like me. Women I'd hired. Women I'd mentored. Women who once thought no meant the end until they turned it into not yet. That evening, I got one last message from an unknown number. Just a single line. "We miss you." I read it, then deleted it. No reply. No guilt. No explanation. Because some chapters don't get a dramatic ending. They get a quiet one. And sometimes that's more powerful. If you're watching this, if you've made it all the way to the end of my story, Let me tell you something I wish someone had told me years ago. You're not crazy. You're not too sensitive. You're not imagining it. That feeling of being left out, of always doing everything right and still being overlooked, of shrinking yourself so others could feel big around you, that's real. That's what it feels like to carry grace in a room that only respects power. That's what it feels like to be needed but not valued. And maybe you've lived that life too. Maybe you've been the one they only call when they want something. The one they ignore until the spotlight lands on you. The one they dismiss, then chase, once the world starts clapping. Let me say this as clearly as I can. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your becoming. You are allowed to outgrow the people who kept you small. You are allowed to say no, even if it's your family asking. You are allowed to walk away without setting yourself on fire to keep anyone else warm. They told me I needed a degree. I believed them. Until I remembered something deeper than a diploma. I am the proof. I am the process. I am the paper. Everything I learned, I earned in silence. In failure. In those lonely nights crying over rejection emails. In the jobs I took that paid nothing but taught me everything. And one day, one quiet, ordinary day, I realized I didn't need their permission. I needed my own. I gave it. And everything changed. I built the business. I hired the people who once told me I wasn't ready. I became the voice I never heard when I needed it. And I promise you, you can too. If you're still doubting yourself right now, let me ask you something. Who told you your value was conditional? Who convinced you that your worth had to be measured in degrees, titles, or approval? Was it a parent who only praised you when it made them look good? A teacher who missed your light because they were too busy worshiping someone else's? A boss who used your silence as an excuse to underpay and undervalue you? Who made you believe that the door you were knocking on was the only one that mattered? I want you to know this. You can build your own door. And better yet, you can build a whole damn hallway for others who look like you, sound like you, cry like you. And you don't need revenge to do it. You need vision. You need faith. You need one good yes. Even if it comes from you alone. You see, the world doesn't teach us how to protect our peace. Especially if you're someone who's always been the fixer, the giver, the good one. We're taught that saying no is rude, that boundaries are betrayal, that healing means welcoming everyone back with open arms. But healing isn't a reunion. Sometimes healing is closure with the door locked. Sometimes healing is silence, without bitterness. Sometimes healing is smiling without needing to be seen. To the version of me who once sat in her car outside an office building, crying because she didn't get the job, I see you. And I'm proud of you. To the version of me who paid her brother's rent while skipping her own meals, I honor your heart, but we don't live there anymore. To the version of me who got dressed for family events only to be uninvited at the last minute, you deserved more. But now you give that love to yourself. And to you, the one watching this, maybe you've been erased,
Dismissed.
ignored. Maybe the people you loved the most made you feel like you were only worthy when you were useful. But let me say this. Your usefulness is not your worth. Your presence is not a favor to them, it's a gift. And if they can't see that, it's okay to leave the table. Even if it's called family. Even if they say, you've changed. Because you have. And that's the point. You don't need a degree to prove you're worthy. You don't need an invitation to prove you belong. You don't need their validation to feel real. You just need one moment of truth. One decision to stop trying to earn what should have been given freely. One no that sets the rest of your life on fire. The good kind. The kind that clears the field and lets you plant something new. Something sacred. Something yours. So, let this be your sign. If you've been waiting for the right time, it's now. If you've been waiting for someone to say you're allowed to choose yourself, you are. If you've been wondering whether walking away makes you selfish, it doesn't. It makes you free. I'll end with this. Sometimes, not showing up is the loudest thing you can do. Sometimes healing looks like silence. Sometimes, peace looks like building a life so full you forget the people who once tried to break you. You're not too much. You're just too real for people who pretend.
And one day, they'll see.
But by then, you won't need them to. Because you'll be too busy living the life they said you couldn't. And that's the sweetest sound of all.